Hello everybody and thank you for coming back to yet another episode of The Gloving Paradigm. I am your host Peter aka LPD8 Dubuque, and this week shall be a very interesting week, at least for me, because I actually have a very special guest with me here. And no, it's not over the phone or over the internet. It is actually here in person, and it is my younger brother Thomas. Thomas, how's it going?
It goes well enough to be here anyways. How is everyone?
It's actually been great. So here's the thing I want to explain to everybody. I had a series of I wouldn't say unusual events. Mundane events happen where basically my younger brother said he needed a place to stay and he decided to come live with me. And so therefore he is now living with me and my husband. So here's the thing I want to explain to everybody is that one of the people on my team of LPD, which if you guys don't know what that means, it's Lights Practically Dance, is a team that I started a long time ago and only had 3 members besides myself.
It originally consisted of myself, my brother Peter, and another guy named Dustin. Although LPD used to mean something different back when you started that.
Yeah, I changed it shortly after we left because it just made more sense that way.
No, yeah, that makes sense. It makes it more applicable to what we were actually doing.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the things I definitely want to elaborate for my audience who is listening on this episode is that I'm taking on a new challenge. And the challenge is my younger brother coming back into the fold of gloving. So, we're going to first start by giving some background about Thomas and his gloving career and some of the things that he likes and dislikes about gloving as a whole, whether it be concepts or gloving materials or even maybe some parts of the community, whatever the case may be. Just kind of give you a background and give you guys an overall idea of what him and I are going to be doing on the show together. Me being somebody who's been very well enfranchised into the community, who's been around for so long and able to really have this wellspring of knowledge to help other people get into this craft. So let's see. You started 2013.
Yeah, I started in December 2013. That's when I got my first ever glove set.
Right.
And I still remember it too. It was Amazing Lights Gloving is on a Crime glove set at the time.
Oh, the E-dots, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was this close from getting E-lights from the get-go, looking at Mom, but then someone found the option to make it E-dots, and I was like, crap. But that's okay.
I think Mom was the one that found them.
No, I ultimately found the option. I was trying to do right by Mom. I don't want to be that guy, overcharge her for something.
Yeah, how much was an E-dot set? It was $30?
No, E-dot set was 20, 25, and then with the E-light 1 modes, it was 34 or 35.
Oh yeah, it wasn't bad at that time period.
It wasn't bad at that time period, but it was the promised price of $20 for Mom and everything. I didn't want to do wrong by her by being sneaky, so
yeah, that's sometimes how Mom tends to be when it comes to stuff like that. If you guys haven't really figured it out yet, my mom's very frugal. But yes, so 2013 you started. I got you kind of into it, but you knew about gloving for a good while because of me starting out in 2010.
Oh yeah, I remember one of the first nights you finally came home after so long during that time, and you sat me down in the bathroom one day. It's like, all right, I want to show you something, and you just put on these gloves and everything. I'm okay, where is he going with this? It turns on the lights and just turns on the music and starts going. I'm like, huh. I would have never thought that this was a thing, but it clearly screams rave culture, which he was just recently telling me about how he went to these raves.
Yeah, that's pretty much how the whole thing started. Anybody who's been a listener on this show for as long as it's been on knows my backstory of gloving, where I went to a rave and saw it for the first time and was instantly hooked on it, But what were some of the most historical points for you in terms of gloving for you that you were that you can remember to this day?
I remember when IGC was first becoming a thing. I was sitting there looking at that while it's healthy to have competitions to promote growth and everything like that, I personally don't believe in competitions for this art form because it's kind of like how ballet was starting out. It wasn't so much a thing of okay, let's compare how good each other is and reward whoever is better. It was you are also equally passionate of this craft. Let us converse together. Let us work together to see how we can improve each other.
Well, I would certainly say that the competitive environment has certainly shifted that way more than you probably actually remember. Because, yes, we all know about the early days of the gloving community and how cutthroat, I guess is the word I want to go with.
Say what?
A little bit. I feel like a lot of people felt that they got robbed of any kind of recognition just by being overshadowed by someone who was more well-known at the time and everything. I imagine early on in like the boss competitions at that, like anyone who like went out, did their best and everything like that, felt they got cheated out almost just because someone had a more recognizable name.
No, I don't. That was really not the case back then. Again, back then it was way more murky. There was a lot more shade being thrown around, and that's where I feel like a lot of people get a huge misconception, most likely you including, about how the competitive environment is in terms of gloving. It is literally so far from that, and I don't know where people get this idea where it's just like everybody who goes into the competitive scene is instantly a douchebag because they're a competitive glover, and it's just like it's not the case at all. And it's, you and I heard this many times in the Magic the Gathering community, not only that, and like even in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, and even something like Super Smash Brothers community. So yeah, we've heard all these kind of different thought processes of how people are about the competitive environment, regardless of what it is. Because everyone's either like, oh, you're just a sheep following the metagame or whatnot, and it's just like, I don't know. When it comes to the competitive and the casual markets, they're just two completely different worlds, and you cannot try to force them to coexist with each other the way that people want them to coexist with each other. The people of the casual market want it to be a more casual thing, while the competitive market wants the casual side to be more competitive. It's just two separate worlds that are never going to merge as one. They're just going to be two separate worlds that coexist together in their own bubble.
Oh yeah, and while I like the idea of competitions and everything like that to promote a kind of healthy stimulation of talent in the sense of like new innovations to the craft, whether it be different move sets, different light products, heck, even different gloves at that point, just things like that. So he's been promoting all these different kinds of changes and everything. But for me, what I feel like is unhealthy about competitions is people who take it too far, almost like a parent forcing someone to be really good at football for the sake of vicariously living through it kind of deal. But some people personally themselves take it too far, thinking that, oh, like I have to be the best just so that way I can achieve whatever personal goal of mine. It's like, that's not always the case. Sometimes a competition is just measuring how you compare to other people without having to worry about just how badly you suck compared to someone, or
What feels to chew 5 gum?
like being shamed by lack of equipment. Say like you're still running Chroma 24s and the other guy next to you has the latest glove set, whatever.
I personally don't think that your equipment has any weight on your ability as a glover in terms of the competitive environment. That's just me.
I don't know. I imagine a lot of people with certain anxieties will have a feel about that. It's like, oh, what if they look at me like I can't achieve certain things because I'm rocking otherwise quote unquote inferior equipment.
I will certainly say this right now. When it comes to the competitive environment and people's thought processes about stuff like that, you need to get that out of your head, because in all honesty, that's the toxicity that you are feeding to yourself. You know what I mean? You're enacting a self-fulfilling prophecy that's going to set yourself up for failure, and you're doing it to yourself, even if it's unintentional, because of your anxiety of stuff like that. Because I will certainly tell you, at the end of the day, especially somebody like me who's been interacting with the community as long as I have very recently with the whole current environment, I will certainly tell you the people who have only been within the community for about 2 years, within 2 years, they have really good talent and they pick up on things very quickly. So them sitting there just thinking like, oh, this person's been in this community for so long, there's no way in hell I have a chance or hold a candle to this person. That may be true. It just depends on how far along you are and how quickly you have developed within that time span. You know what I mean? And what I always like to use as a good example is the movie Take the Lead, where he actually helps a class of students in a school that's in a less than privileged area, as I guess I will refer to that as.
What's your profanity?
and explain to them, because they will talk about like, what if we don't win? What if we don't get anywhere with it? And it's like, that's not the point. And to me, to a lot of people, when it comes to the competitive environment, to win is not always the point. Yes, it is a goal. That is the goal of competition, is to win. But that is not what you should be striving for when it comes to a competition setting. To me, it's just like how he said in the movie, you are there to surprise them. It's not literally to win to get that recognition, because you don't have to win to get that recognition. You know what I mean? Which happened in the movie. They didn't win, but they still got recognized as like, yes, you are a formidable opponent and you are very well versed in this art, in this dance style, even though they only been doing it for a few months. Compared to people who've been trained for years doing that stuff, and we're talking like one of the most cutthroat competitive environments of ballroom dance. Like, it is extremely cutthroat from what Jason has told me.
Oh yeah, so, I can imagine ballroom dancing being incredibly, not even necessarily cutthroat, but just how would I describe vicious, but incredibly exacting. It's one of those things where like you do any wrong step, you will be critically destroyed over it.
No, I will certainly. I've explained this in depth before on my show before about how ballroom dance, in terms of competition, how they go about it. They have the scorecard and what they are looking for in terms of from the dancers and the performance altogether. So, anyone who's listened to this podcast for a while, they know that I've talked about that in length. So, that's just one thing. I know for you, it's not one of the things like that's one of your goals of coming back into gloving, is to like get into the competitive environment.
Oh, I'm not a competitive person in the least.
No, I like to you and I've also discussed this in great length on my show, that when it comes to gloving, is whatever you get out of it is for you. So like for you and me, it's an expressive outlet. It is our artistic expressive outlet that allows us to express ourselves, and we fucking love it for that. To some other people, it's a more therapeutic outlet for them. It's their therapy. Now granted, us for an expressive outlet also works secondarily as a therapeutic outlet, because to me, I can't, I don't feel happy if I'm unable to glove,
Yeah.
If I get stuck and denied the opportunity to glove, then I'm like super depressed. That's just because that's how passionate I am about this. But, and there's some other people who find it as a competitive outlet. They like it as a competitive outlet. And that is fantastic, in my opinion, because that's what it works for you. That's what gloving does for you. I watch a bunch of YouTube channel people, and there are people who do the things for the competitive element of it because that's what they want out of it. And there's other people who do it for other reasons. And that's what I like about gloving in general, is because it has a wide appeal to an audience.
Oh yeah. For me, especially when it comes to competitions, I feel like the healthiest mindset you can walk in there with isn't even so much like I'm going to win or what if I lose. It's more just like, how far will I get? That's the same thing with Magic tournaments. I would always go in with, like, I just want to see how far I get.
Well, to me, and I said this 1,000 times on my show, it's not about winning or losing. It's about becoming a better person, win or lose. In the case of Magic the Gathering, being a better player. In case of gloving, being a better glover. In case of dancing, being a better dancer. Whatever you can insert into that spot. That's the whole idea when it comes to competitive thought processes for me. But I think we kind of covered enough on the whole competitive side about it. So let's talk about some of the things that you like from the gloving as its own entity. Like, what's your favorite concepts? What's your favorite things to do? What's your favorite aspects that you like to tinker around with and express yourself through? Things like that.
Me personally, for one thing, I love how it gets me to stretch. There's certain unique stretches that I do that just feel so good. I'm weird like that, but I love stretching, and gloving has actually helped me discover some new ways to stretch that I've actually come to really like.
Yeah, no kidding, his stretchings are disgusting.
Disgusting!
Thank you for putting it like that, but it's okay. I've been told several times never to do in front of a person ever again. But that aside, other than that, it's hard to put it in words because I never really thought about it for too long, but otherwise I guess I just like everything that you can do with it, seeing all the different combinations between colors, flashing patterns, and the movesets that people come up with, all those combinations feeding into one nice flow with thing. It's incredible to see.
Yeah, I would certainly say so. Like, what's your favorite concept?
My favorite concept would probably be, even though this is still in its early stages, would probably be teleporting. Oddly enough, and this is something I know that's going to be really hard for me to incorporate with because the moveset isn't exactly asking for it, but teleporting flails. It's going to be incredibly hard because it's going to involve a lot of stopping and starting, popping and locking, what have you, but I feel like that would look really cool.
Well, I would certainly say teleporting is like its own archetype, really, in terms of gloving right now, because it literally is just like any gloving style. Just it has its own unique gimmick. So like impacting, for example, as everybody's listened on to my episode about impacting, its main dynamic are the thumbs, and the contrast between the colors on the thumbs. And we've discussed in length how blue and red are scientifically the best way to contrast between your two thumbs. It's because red is the longest wavelength as blue is the shortest. Like, that's just common knowledge.
Very much so.
Yeah, so you have the main dynamic of what I say for impacting is the contrast and being focused on so much on the thumbs. Then you have things like conjuring, where it's not focusing so much on the thumb but all the hands, but what is being more focused on in terms of what you're doing with your lights, in terms of like magic tricks and things like that. There's a level of showmanship that really goes more further into that. Teleporting has such a different dynamic in terms of being an archetype than the other archetypes out there, because to me, at least from what I've understand from it, it's a more of a reactionary type of archetype than being a proactive archetype. Like impacting and conjuring are very proactive in their game plan type deal of what they want to do. Teleporting reacts more than be proactive to the song. So instead of being, anticipating the beat, you are reacting to the beat to give that kind of effect. And that's what I actually really, really like, because you are now changing. It's like, to me, if you look at like impacting and conjuring, it's like they're the lead, right? In terms of like two people dancing, you have the lead and you have the follower. Mm-hmm. Impacting and conjuring are like leads. They proactively lead into the song. As teleporting, it's more of the follower and letting the song be the leader, and actually letting it lead and being reactionary to what the song's doing. And that's what I really, really like about it.
Oh yeah, I completely understand. I will say this, teleporting is one of those archetypes that is solely dependent on having accelerometers. You can't get away with it without them. Unless you're like super good at conjuring and then within a split second click on all your lights on and off.
Well, and I don't think that's necessarily a problem. Some people can do that if they want to. It's certainly a challenge in my opinion, but I will certainly agree with you that you can't. It's the one archetype that actually was born from having the accelerometer introduced into our craft.
Yeah, who was it from Futuristic Lights? Robin?
Yes.
Yeah, he's the one who like really started the pioneer.
He pioneered it. He popularized it. It's still very niche within the community, which I find rather shameful. I'm not saying that I'm shaming the community for it. I just the lack of its presence within the community is shameful. That's the thing I find shameful. It's lack of presence, and because it's such a unique style. It's just so unique. Like, that was like the big archetype to come out after accelerometers really got featured into our community. And so I'm hoping that people really push themselves to actually really work on understanding the accelerometer and using that and utilizing it to their ability of their show.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So here's a good question for you. Coming back, what concepts or moves have you seen recently that you're just like, holy shit, I want to learn that?
Well, I see everyone doing these weird cluster setups that, while they are impressive, it certainly teaches me what I can and can't get away with my hands. But after that, as far as moves I actually like really want to learn, I'm seeing a lot of pedals, like flail pedals and everything that I'm really trying to get in on my flail. So I see something like that, like a pedal or anti-pedal, and everything like that. I'm really trying to get on that.
Well, I would certainly say brushing yourself up and refamiliarizing yourself with normal flails first is going to be a good step. And then once you get comfortable with your flails again, then we got to start working on like anti-flails. Because anti-flails is what really actually kind of, at least in my opinion, really sells the pedals that people are able to pull off. And you have so many different ways to go about it. You have 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, how many points you want. To me, if you're going to have more than like 4 or 5 points, you gotta really figure out a way to exemplify that there are that many points. Usually, maybe you're doing both hands. and it can get really, really complicated. You know what I mean? And there's ways that people have figured it out. You know what I mean? So, petals is one thing, and I know flails has always been like a huge concept for you, just because Fry was one of your biggest inspirations, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, he was my #1 inspiration as far as anything gloving related goes. In fact, there's still one video of him at the TNT tryouts of his doing that weird bangarang mix.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was his TNT tryout video was actually really good.
Yeah, like I always remember that video.
But okay, so speaking of other well-known glovers, what other well-known glovers do you actually are inspired by, or you look up to, or you like to follow because of their style?
I guess for me, I have like a different idol for a different concept. So like for tutting and king tutting, J-Funk was my biggest inspiration. I looked at every single one of his shows, and I know I'll never be that clean as he is, but oh my goodness, his technique is flawless.
We're gonna try to get him there, people. Don't worry. I'm going to get him there.
And then I guess as far as conjuring, it would be hard pressed for me to get into conjuring, but I can't remember his name. But he was just.
Are you talking about Munch?
Was it Munch, or it was like either Munch or Mumbles? Start with an M.
It would be Munch.
Probably Munch. Yeah, I remember seeing one of his shows where just like effortlessly he would do a whip or a finger roll, and before even coming up, all of a sudden it's a different glove set altogether without even realizing that he switched them all.
You're talking about Vision Quest then?
Probably Vision Quest. Again,
are you talking about the one that he literally would go like this and all of them would change at the same time, and then he would constantly like that's Vision Quest.
Yeah, like he would finger roll, he would whip, and just constantly changing glove sets on you. It was great.
Yeah, I definitely that was definitely oh my god, I just lost his name.
Vision Quest.
Thank you. I can't believe I just did that.
Well, when life gives you lemons.
Yeah, so is there anyone else that you really look up to? Because you pretty much know who I always look up to, right? I had Musk as one of my biggest inspirations. Skittles was another huge one that was very prominent when I first started out.
Yeah, I remember Skittles.
Was definitely a huge fan of Fry. Fry was Aku. Aku was one of the dudes I was following because he was just, oh god, his flow was so good.
It's been a long time since I don't know a lot of names.
Super clean. That's the one that I showed you that had the dots on the thumbs, middles, and pinkies, and then the heartbeat ones on his index and rings.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's that one that I really, really liked, that he was featured on Amazing Lights. Aku's, I can't remember what the glove set was called, but he used the E-Light matrices. I know that for sure.
I miss my matrices.
Yeah, didn't you give those to Dustin?
Yeah, I sold it to him for $25.
Yeah, that's really crazy how things like that kind of go about. But anyways, petals is one of the things you want to learn. Is there any other like concept archetype things that you want to learn about? Like I know just seeing how clusters are, it gets very, very complicated, or looks extremely complicated. But I will certainly say, somebody who's been doing this for 10 years, I just recently started to understand how to incorporate clusters and actually really understand its methodology and its dynamics.
I guess it's something similar to clusters. I don't know what digits are referred to now anymore.
They're still referred to as digits.
But I guess creatures or monsters.
Creatures is still a concept that's still around.
Because like there are a few moves I picked up from like mudra hand yogas and everything that, I get it into position and everything like that, and I can make what looks like an animal. It kind of looks like a snake head of sorts.
Yeah, no, that's very common. I know there are a few like gloving teams out there that are very like their main overarching gimmick with all the members is creatures. There's a couple of those. Peanut still being one of the people who really popularized the idea.
Yeah, but wasn't his
as somebody who's not part? He referred to them as monsters, but he says a lot of people called them creatures.
I guess that's fair.
But I would certainly say he's the one that a lot of glovers really looked up to when it came to incorporating creatures. Now, granted, creatures have been around a lot longer than gloving has been. Because if you look at liquid dancing and finger tutting and tutting in general, they've been around way longer than gloving has. But what else? What else are you really excited about coming back into the gloving fold?
Well, I am interested to see how all these new chipsets are. I got to try, what was it, the ions?
The atoms. I actually still have the atoms. The ions you didn't get to have a chance because I already played with those, did my review, and gave those away very quickly.
That's fair. For one thing that got me was how thick they were. Yeah, they were a lot narrower as far as circumference went, but the thickness was like double what I'm used to, and kind of threw me off.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Just coming from having chroma controls, having the elements, having EL products before they switched over to the Evo setup.
Yeah.
That's why these are referred to as nano chips. It's just because of their size. Yes, they are a little bit taller, and that's the thing I always try to explain to people when it comes to these products is that you got to figure out this compromise, because you can't have like this extremely small narrow thing that has like 24 hours of battery life.
Yeah.
We do have limitations within the manufacturing process and the creative process when it comes to these chips. And I would certainly say, like, just from my experience, especially with like the atoms, one thing I would like to see improved upon is a shorter time window for the receiving end of the chip-to-chip communications, because that drains the batteries really quickly. So
yeah, I don't doubt. Does anything Bluetooth related will kill your battery?
Just to oh, good. I get to inform him of something, guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. So let's all gather around so Thomas can have this wonderful lesson about accelerometers and chip-to-chip communication.
Oh yeah, you gotta get swifty.
So, chip-to-chip communication, Thomas.
I remember the advertisements.
Yeah, it does not use Bluetooth technology because due to a certain patent that a certain company has, no other company can actually use Bluetooth technology. Or
without paying for the patent.
Basically. And most of the time, we're not going to get into it, but most of the time it usually came to a C and D order, so. But when it comes to chip-to-chip communication, it actually kind of uses almost infrared technology.
So
this is a very common thing that the military uses in terms of transferring over data from one radio to another. Not in terms of communication, but in terms of parameter setups, your frequencies, your ranges, your encryption codes, all that stuff. Radios are actually able to do that through lights.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's line of sight communication.
Exactly, so LOS.
So literally, like your remote for a TV, that's line of sight communication.
Yes, and that uses infrared technology.
Exactly. Hence why your camera can see the light while we can't. Exactly.
So if you want to see a nice little trick, grab your remote and then turn on your phone camera and point the bulb at the lens, and you will actually see the light come through. If you have not done that already. But yes, so here's the thing. When I talked to Zohar, who's the CEO of Futuristic Lights, he explained to me how receiving, which I already knew this, that receiving information from another light takes a lot of energy to do so, because it has to first collect all the data, then process the data, and then codify the data.
Yeah.
In the military, we have things called multiplexers that do something very similar, but not only do they, compile and bring it back together, but they're able to separate and shoot it back out. Granted, our lights don't need to be doing that, but I'm just saying, like, the method is understandable for me. But you got a 2-minute window after you turn off your light to send information to it. And so in this 2-minute window, it's sitting there trying to grab information, and is using a lot of energy to do so. So as much as I love chip-to-chip communication, because it's all self-contained within itself, I just kind of think that the window for the receiving end should just be shorter. I would say no more than a minute.
That's
in my
what
opinion.
I was thinking, was just a minute, because how long realistically would it take for you to be like, for 10 lights, be like dot 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 for all 10 of them,
Well, there are certain things that you have to take in consideration. Like, I haven't really actually ever had an issue of chip-to-chip communication through a diffuser. My cube diffusers, I never had a problem with it. My dome diffusers, I never had a problem with it. Unfortunately, I have not been able to test a shield diffuser to see if it works, but I'm sure somebody out there who's used shield diffusers and uses chip-to-chip communication devices, please let me know so I can have that information available. I do have popcorn diffusers. I never played with them. It's just because you and I have talked in length how we like what popcorn diffusers do in terms of the performance, but actually using them, you and I hate them.
They are hard to use. I will certainly say doing like digits and dials with them are really hard because you don't get that nice clean stacking like you would with cubes. And I will say like when you're whipping or flailing your hands around, that the extra weight of the popcorn ones will literally just cause them to throw your glove off on you.
I think it's just I don't want to say it's uneven surface area, but just the unevenness that they do possess, you know.
Yeah.
It's one dot with 5 dots around it. They don't sit normally on your fingers. They do slide around. To me, they throw off how my finger placements are on the lights. Now, granted, I will say last time I played around with popcorn diffusers with the chroma controls of the 1620 variety. So maybe the nano chips being taller as they are by nature probably actually kind of offsets the whole bulkiness that the popcorn diffusers do have.
Potentially.
That way, like the top of the diffuser is kind of like flush with the button, so I'm not sitting there like trying to hit the button, but I'm being stuck on top of the popcorn diffuser. That was the biggest annoyance I had with popcorn diffusers, is that every time I wanted to go change my lights and I put my fingers in their normal place out of habit, I couldn't change them because the top bulb thing on the popcorn diffusers always threw me off. Yeah. Didn't you say your favorite diffuser is just like mine, is the cube diffusers, right?
Effectively. However, I don't think I can use them with the taller chips.
I didn't have a problem with them. I would certainly say with the atoms, I'm using my cube diffusers, and I never really had a problem with them. Now, granted, I've dealt with cube diffusers ever since they came out. Like once I got my hands on them, I've always used cube diffusers. Like cube diffusers are my jam.
I remember. For me, what it was is I would have it sitting in the notch, right? Everything would be nice, and then say I would go to like a finger roll, and I would bring my fingers in and everything like that. Well, then my finger all of a sudden comes out of that groove, and then the whole diffuser itself is just sitting on top of my finger.
Yeah, with the cube diffusers, yeah. I would say that I felt like their design had more of an underhand mentality to it.
Yeah.
Just because of the
way the groove was cut in.
Yeah, how they cut it out. It like to me it fit perfectly when it was underhand.
Yeah. I also believe that the cube diffusers that you're using are obviously still originally designed for original sized Eli microchips and everything like that. So that might be something to look into for anyone who makes diffusers, to be like, oh hey, let's make diffusers compensatively for the fact that these chips are now getting fatter and slightly taller on your fingers.
Oh, I don't think you actually know then. You do realize that they actually discontinued a lot of the diffusers that they made, right?
Oh, I don't know. I know that they stopped making frosted diffusers, which made me angry as all hell.
Yeah, we can go days upon days just talking about our frustration about losing our frosted diffusers. However, something you probably don't know is that we actually have plenty of third-party people who make their own custom diffusers.
Oh yeah,
and all of them are pretty much on the same boat when it comes to frosted. Like, yeah, we need a good frosted market. I definitely agree. We need a bigger frosted market.
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
But some of the other things that you and I actually talked about in great length are things like the clear bulb dilemma, as you and I like to call it.
Oh yes, the clear bulb dilemma.
I wouldn't say dilemma. I would say conundrum. You know what I mean? It's more of a conundrum.
Not necessarily conundrum. It's just more of like you either get annoyed by it or you're okay with it. For us, it's one of those things where if you have a clear diffuser and a clear bulb, all you get is a silhouette of the shape of the diffuser. Otherwise, it's still looking like a glass prism with light shining through it. And you can see all the way into the bulb, and you see the stoplight setup, and it's just very distracting because instead of seeing what your glover wants you to see, you're just stuck looking at the traffic light.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think they called that spotlighting, when you actually see the diodes and stuff and it's not fully blending or diffusing properly.
Right.
But everybody on my show who's listened to my show long enough knows that I always talk about stuff like this. If you have a clear bulb, you want a frosted diffuser. If you have a frosted diffuser, you want a clear one. Or a frosted bulb, you want a clear diffuser. Excuse me, my bad. Blah, 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 blah. It is so hard to be a content creator and not always say everything the right way. And sometimes it just comes out of your mouth like...
He needs some milk.
It's okay. My speech gets broken too sometimes. You're not alone.
Yeah. We try though. We really do.
We do.
But yeah, so that was actually one of the things I thought was so interesting. So you and I remember when clear bulbs actually became a thing. Like, remember when the chromas, the original chromas, actually had the special editions that had the clear bulbs?
Yeah, everyone was freaking out about them.
Yes, and that's where I think that's where the trend started, is when they did that and everybody wanted them. And I don't think it was because, oh, they had clear bulbs, that's so amazing. It's because they were a special edition of clear bulbs, which was never presented to the community firsthand, besides through iNova's type bulbs.
Yeah.
But in terms of macro chips, like a chroma with a clear bulb at the time, that was unheard of. So yeah, people wanted that.
And then I want to say people got used to how bright clear bulbs got and everything, and just kind of went with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It was just a huge trend. It was very unprecedented at the time, so a lot of people wanted it. Do I think that it's the same case today? No. I will certainly say there is a very strong section of the community, like myself, who are all about frosted bulbs. And to the people who say, oh, they're just not bright enough, I will definitely disagree with you, because if you ever even had your hands on the ions from futuristic lights, those things were bright as hell. Like, I mean, they were freaking bright.
I'm just going to say this. Diffusion does not affect luminosity.
Yeah. It does not affect luminosity. So if you're the type of person who's like, oh, having frosted bulbs just makes it dimmer, it does not. You and I, again, talked in great length when it comes to macro chips that are programmables. The diffusion of the diodes are absolutely crucial in order for you to pull off the colors you want. Again, and you and I have also talked in great length about the purple bleeding problem. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very hard to have red, purple, and blue all together in the same set. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Like, yes, there are bulbs out there that are red, blue, purple, and they were actually very popular back in the day. Remember those?
Oddly, it was because it was one of those things where when you was stationary, you had that perfect, really rich, deep kind of purple, and then when you moved it, it looked like the purple was starting to separate apart with each stroke and then come right back together.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. I know those were super huge. Remember color diffusers though?
Oh yeah, they were nice. They were gimmicky.
I think they were just a product of their time. You know what I mean?
They really were. They were early experimentation. People, I'm sure, had fun with them. I wouldn't have minded them to a certain extent. I would certainly say like using a red light with a blue diffuser on top would give you a rather unique purple that you can't get with just using the programmable purple. But
that was actually one of the cool things back in the day before macro chips really came to prominence was that you had these color diffusers to actually affect your tint, but it really didn't actually affect your color scheme all that much. Like certain colors, yes, they actually changed in terms of hues, but overall, it really didn't affect it as much as people thought it would.
Not too much. It depended on the kind of diffusers you have. Like if you had an open-ended premium diffuser that was colored, it would work out just fine because then you can point forward and you can still see everything just fine. If you had a closed-off one, then you might have a problem depending on the colors. Like if you had a red one, you can't really use blues all that well without just getting purple everywhere, and vice versa. If you're using like a green one,
any bulb that had white in it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you had a color diffuser, it would turn into that color.
Yeah.
But again, like that was very interesting at the time. You know, you had ways to actually sit there and think like, oh, you can have this very subtle way of subverting somebody's expectation by your idle color using a color diffuser.
Yeah, like say if you just have a regular RGB strobe and everything like that and you throw a red diffuser on it, you're going to have a much redder tint to it and everything.
Yeah, and of course, you know, I've talked in great length about the difference between micro and macro chips, you know, between bulbs and programmables and how they work. You know, that's been some of those things that you and I have talked about in great length. Not diffusers, but casings. How do you feel about how casings have changed over time now?
I haven't seen any form of new casings for the most part since like the Elite 4.0 casings. I do know like with their Evolution series of chipsets that they have it to where you just pull the batteries out without even removing the casings. I like the idea of that because then you don't have to sit there worry about breaking the things that fasten your casing together.
Yeah, just to kind of point this out to everybody, not Amazing Light products, but like Liquid Emotions, iNova's, like the older chipsets, like where you actually are required to have like another tool to open this thing.
Right.
Yeah, I know that was one of your big big problems. And even Amazing Light with their E-Light casings, especially like the 3.0s, you and I actually got disappointed because of how easily they were able to break.
That what also got me was that the blackout casings, for whatever reason, whether it be a different material or the fact that it was just black, they would break down a lot faster than the clear ones. It was unnatural. Like I would have them for like 2 weeks, and I'm breaking open one, and all of a sudden, like a whole half of the click thing is gone, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I don't know exactly what happened, but I just remember like one of the biggest, proudest things that Amazing Lights always liked to boast about was just how strong their casings were. You know, you remember some of the demonstrations they had to do, like chuck one underneath somebody's skateboarding and just run right over it, and it still worked. Like it took some hit, but it still fucking worked.
I remember their EDOT test footage and everything. They're just chucking these things at the wall as hard as they can.
That's right. I remember them doing that.
Yeah, they're just almost like they were shooting them out of an air cannon. Just
Yeah, that was pretty crazy how they went about doing that. You know, now I know you probably haven't actually looked in depth on the Evo casings, but you do know that it's actually kind of difficult that you remove the chips out of them.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt. It's something that was a compromise between getting the chip out and getting the batteries out, which for me it was a nice compromise because more often than not, the reason why you're taking your casings off was to change the batteries, so I get that. But at the same time, say you want to use a particular casings for a particular light and everything like that, and you have to get them off, well, I don't know if these new casings are capable of separating, or if they're more of like a silicone gel sleeve where you just kind of like fit them over.
It depends on which company you're talking about. EL, they do not use silicone as much. If you talk about any of the other ones like Futuristic Lights, Candy Creations, Throw Lights,
LED.com.
LEDgloves.com as well, thank you. I don't know why I keep forgetting them when they have like the most generic loving like company name, LEDgloves.com. Like it's so generic, and I don't know why I keep forgetting about it.
You just don't hear about it a lot, like any of their products a lot.
I would certainly say if you take the two big, you know, honchos out of the way, if you take EL and FL off the table and talk about the other companies, the other ones I hear the most of is Candy Creations and LED Gloves.
Oh yeah, was it LED Gloves that came out with the Auroras? Because I've always wanted to get my hands on the Auroras.
I think that was Candy Creation.
I swear it was LED Gloves.
It might have been LED
because
Gloves.
It had the Jester gloving pin for it.
Yeah, I do know that Candy Creation was doing the Stardust project, which I will certainly say I'm probably gonna have you on when I do the gloving history stuff, because you and I can actually sit here and discuss like what that meant during that time period. Because if I remember correctly, you remember the gloving ban back in the day when that first happened.
Oh yeah,
in was it June or July of 2010? I know it was in 2010, and I know it was during the summer because I was in Fort Hunter Liggett when that happened.
Yeah, it was around 2010, maybe even 2011.
No, it was 2010.
Well, it came down to that one EDC event.
EDC LA.
Yeah, where like literally people were trampling over each other. I can't remember how many injuries and or recorded deaths that they had at the event.
There's a lot of numbers being thrown out there, but I will certainly say yes, there was the I don't want to call it a raid. How do we want to explain this? It was like a Zergling rush happening. I remember people literally like hopping over the fences and like all this crazy stuff. Like if I remember correctly, I remember reading somewhere like Lil Jon or whoever, I want to say it was Lil Jon, that was there was like yelling at the people hopping over the fence. Like it turned into pure pandemonium.
Yeah, imagine like a zombie horde of sentient people mobbing in on 1-2 singular entrances. Like it just wasn't gonna work.
Yeah, there's still footage out there where people are getting like pulled out of the piles of people who are trying to get through the access points.
Yeah, and then from all the people that, you know, got hurt and everything like that, 3 of them had gloves on them, I'm sure, and then Insomniac event or whoever hosted it saw that and were just like, yeah, nope, none of these anymore.
No, I will. Again, we're going to go into great length about this in the gloving history series that I'm planning on doing, but there was one particular death that really sparked all of this, and like I said, and I even said it on that episode of the Stigma when I talked about this, because that's actually part of the gloving history that I always talk about, of course. And you know how much I loathe and lament talking about the stigma, because it's just, you and I both agree, it's like the reserve list in Magic the Gathering. It just, the conversation doesn't get anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere, and all it does, it makes people frustrated and upset about its existence. You know what I mean?
It's effectively, yeah.
So, not going to get into huge detail about that. We will cover that later down the road. But you do just remember a lot of these big, huge points that happen in gloving because, one, I talked about it. You know what I mean? But the other things that you saw, a lot of the other good things that happened, like through the gloving ban, we got IGC. And I felt like that was one of the things that was like a glue that kept the community together during a very dark time for us.
It gave Glovers a place to go to that effectively was a kind of a rave that allowed for gloving and everything like that. And then for everyone who entered the competition, then they would go on to compete. But then you also had your boss competitions and meetups. What was it? The weekly thing? It was like Thursday Night Lights, or
yes, Thursday Night Lights, Friday Night Lights, Saturday Night Lights. Like we had like there was a lot of things going that was like really great, and I really felt like the community was just progressing naturally when we had Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday Night Lights. That was like the casual market type deal. Like to you and us, that's like a local FNM. Like,
yeah,
it's no big competition scene. It's not a stupid casual scene.
It's low stakes, low reward.
Yeah, it was just a fun place to go. Just like any other event or venue or festival. Well, I wouldn't put festival in this category. I would say more venue.
Yeah.
Unless the festival is very local.
I do miss the Arizona rave scene, I'll say that.
Oh, the desert rave scene. Oh god, that was great. But yeah, so Thomas, is there anything else that you want to talk about when it comes to the gloving? Like what other things are you excited about coming back?
Oddly enough, I'm interested in making some of my own kind of custom creations. Like I'm trying to get into sewing as a personal thing for other projects and all that. So I figured at the same time, like, I can work on potentially making custom gloves that will be more suitable for larger diffusers, whether or not it'll be like an external slip that the diffuser fits in, so that way it's not stretching the inside of the glove. Or
you can even sew in the hole for the light to poke through, so it doesn't actually wear and tear on there. You can actually like stitch up the hole itself to reinforce it.
Could do that. There's just a few things I was thinking about. Maybe I can try and get away with, but then otherwise, I'm just kind of looking forward to see where I go from here. Right now, I'm just trying to get good at what I know again, and then branch off.
Yeah, we grease up the wheels that we're putting in place, and then we're going to add on to it and kind of streamline everything within yourself again. Kind of bring you back to the malleable mold that you need to be of the clay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What I need to start doing is just a once a month. Don't care about it. Just throw a show.
Yeah. So I will certainly say this to our audience. So here's the plan when it comes to this challenge. Now, somebody who's been doing this for 10 years. I'm pretty much taking somebody under my wing again, even though he was under my wing before. I'm bringing him back underneath my wing. He flew away, and I brought him back. That's what I'm doing.
I came limping back.
Pretty much, basically. So I'm going to get him back into the swing of things and going to get him, back to where he was before, and kind of break some of that rust off. And then we're going to work on getting yourself to improve. So one of my ideas for this is that once a month, you come back onto the show. We talk about your progress. We talk about what you have been learning through the community. Just to let everybody know, I'm going to try at least once a week have him on the Discord chat with me. When I hang out with a lot of people on the Discord chat, just because a lot of people already met him. Everybody's actually really, really excited about him being on the show and actually, representing somebody who's coming in and learning and talking about what he's learned, how he learned about it, and, pretty much just have somebody to give you guys a journey to follow. And Thomas's journey, even though it started back in 2013, restarting again here in 2020, I think you're going to just have a whole lot of fun and just a wonderful journey altogether.
Oh yeah, just to clarify, it's not like I stopped doing it completely. It was just one of the things I fell out of practice because no one was around that was interested. And so I still played with my hands, I just never did anything more.
Let's actually touch on that. So you remember how a lot of my friends were? You remember how Justin and Matt and all of them were about my gloving? Like, the only time they actually liked doing it is when they were completely sick Zimas to the winds, messed up in the head, inebriated in any form. Like, that was the only way they would actually talk to me or even converse with me about gloving. Like, literally, the only time they actually really wanted to talk to me about gloving is when they were messed up in the head.
Alright, up in Alaska, technically I only threw one show while I was up there, and it didn't go over very well. Everyone was spread out around me, so I just mostly flails and whips and king tutting, things that don't require you getting up close for them to see. But otherwise, it was very hard to, because in the summertime, the sun is up constantly. At most, maybe around 1 or 2 in the morning, that's the darkest you're going to get, and it'll look like a perpetual twilight. After that, it's just up all the time. So gloving in the summer in Alaska wasn't really going to happen unless you find a really dark room. And then at winter time, it was kind of like all these other priorities, trying to keep yourself warm, trying to keep the house warm, and everything like that. You're not really thinking about, like, throwing shows and...
Yeah, no, I would certainly say that, like, just you and I, in terms of, like, historical standpoints, that we just dealt with a disinterest in gloving from our friends outside of it. You know what I mean?
I will say gloving's been around long enough for where people can be indifferent towards it now. It's not so much like, oh, whatever, get that drug-fueled thing away from me. Or like, oh yeah, please give it to me, like, I need something like this. No, it's people are just now indifferent. It's like, oh, it's what it is. Cool, let's walk away now.
Oh yeah, well, and see, and everybody on my show who's listened to my show for as long as they have, they all know about Sebastian. Somebody who was never a glover themselves, but loved the craft for what it is, and was the one person who kept pushing me with it, and again, who's the inspiration for the show altogether. It's just so interesting how you kind of realize how certain friends are when it comes to something that you're very passionate about. Everybody knows I'm extremely passionate about gloving. Like, gloving is literally my lifeblood. Like, you cannot... I don't think my personality would exist the way it does without gloving. You know what I mean? And that's what people just... I think my friends just never understood that, of how integral it was in my life and how important it was in my life to have something like this. This was something that I was able to express myself that was so different from all other forms of expressions that I've seen. Now, I'm not saying that any form of expression is bad. It was just, I didn't feel like that's how I wanted to express myself. When I found gloving, that's when I realized this is how I wanted to express myself.
Same, like, I have a very low expressive personality. I don't express myself very well, even emotionally, more often than not.
Yeah, not even to your own family, for God's sakes.
Yeah, for real. But I like to express myself through other means, whether it be like ornamentation, like what I'm wearing, my glove sets, what kind of color or fashion patterns am I rocking, and everything like that. Just anything other than expressing myself verbally and emotionally,
Yeah. So I would certainly say that this is just going to be a very interesting thing to watch unfold. And I'm hoping that my audience are going to thoroughly enjoy watching this. But, Thomas, is there anything that you're excited about when it comes to gloving currently now? Or just going into this challenge, that, at least for me, I'm just excited that I get to teach somebody in person again and actually, really nurture their development into the craft.
Ultimately, what I'm excited about is just being able to throw shows again. Like, there was no one, even in Arizona, I had hardly anyone to throw shows to.
Yeah, you and I didn't have that many. Now, granted, yes, I did have Sebastian, I did have Kevin, I did have certain friends, but during that time period, it was so far in between when it came to friends who wanted light shows from me.
Yeah. After that, it's just, I play things by ear, so as things come up, it'll be like, oh, hell yeah, or goodness, no, kind of deal. Yeah, but otherwise, that's pretty much it for now. I will extend a personal question. I still effectively don't have a gloving name, so I'm curious to know what kind of suggestions you would have for me. Right now, the one that's teetering on the tip of my tongue is Desert Rat, because I'm full-blooded Desert Rat.
Yeah, I think we even got that term from Aladdin, the animated one.
No, Desert Rat is literally a codified term for native Arizonans.
Oh, okay then. The more you know. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything that we need to cover, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will definitely want to let everybody know that that's pretty much all of our episode. I know we were kind of going on over an hour here, but if you want to ask Thomas any questions, if you have anything for him that you would want to ask of him or want to know about him, you do have the various outlets you can hit me up at, because if you hit me up, I will be able to communicate it to him directly since he lives with me. So first things first, everybody knows that I have a Facebook page, which is aptly named The Gloving Paradigm. You can hit me up on there. I'm always very responsive. I try to be as much engaging as possible on there. I am also on Reddit under the username Mutton Chop Guy. And I do have an email, which is muttonchopguy@gmail.com. Those are other two places you can hit me up at. Of course, I do have a Discord server that anyone wants to get on. You can get on there. I try to communicate as much as possible with a lot of people on there as well. Of course, I'm also on the Worldwide Glovers Discord chat. I'm always on there like every night hanging out with everybody there. So if you are on that Discord chat and you want to come hang out with me and my younger brother Thomas from time to time, you will find us there. Of course, I do have other places you can also follow me on. I do have an Instagram now, which is, Instagram Mutton Chop Guy. You can find me there. And I do have a YouTube channel, of course, which I'm backlogging all my episodes, so you can find me on there. All those links will be in the description below. And of course, without further ado, if you like the content that I create and you wish to help me further on making better content in the future and to support this show, I do have a Patreon that you can pledge to. If you pledge as little as $1 a month, you will gain access to my own private Discord server for my Patreons only. You will get behind the scene contents not only with me, but you will actually see my younger brother there. You'll see my dog, and you may even see my husband in there. I will try to get him in the behind the scenes stuff, but do not think it's going to be a guarantee. He's not a very photogenic person as it is.
It'd be more of a cameo at that.
Yeah. If anything, he's probably going to be behind the camera, and you'll probably hear him talk from here, from time to time. I know on the new behind the scene content that I just created and we're posting, you can hear Jason talk a little bit in that, but you don't see him on camera. But yeah. So again, if you want to help me make better content and you want to support this show the best way you can, please consider joining on to my Patreon. You can do as little as $1 a month. I do have a $3 tier, which gives you early access to all the episodes. So if you want early access to the episodes before anyone else listens to it, please consider donating at the $3 tier. Again, I do have the goal set of getting to $1,000 a month, which allows me to do this full time, where I don't have to do a day job in order to fund this and keep this show going, because in all honesty, the show is kind of bleeding right now. So please do consider. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers it. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
No, I got my request for gloving name ideas, and that's about it.
All right. But yes, thank you to everybody who's liked the page so far. If it wasn't for you guys and your continued silent moral support, the show would not be possible. So once again, thank you so much. I absolutely love you guys. But I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and I'll see you guys all next week.